Fellow peasants and nobility alike, rejoice! Brings me great joy to inform you that Warhorse Studios recently unveiled their upcoming project, a game that they've been quietly working on for the past 6 years.
Come Deliverance 2.
Even better news, it has a current targeted release year of this year, 2024, and it'll be launching on PC and also current gen Xbox and PlayStation. So yeah, this game is pretty relevant to talk about and expect a lot of coverage right here on this channel. For those of you unfamiliar with Come Deliverance 1, it's a first-person medieval story-driven open world RPG adventure. The exact genre is debatable, but who cares? And you play as a young man named Henry in the early 15th century Bohemia, which at this time was an imperial state of the Holy Roman Empire. This is also going to be the case for KCD2. If you didn't know, Bohemia is actually modern-day Czech Republic, and it's an absolutely gorgeous country. And KCD 1, and I would assume also 2, do a great job showcasing that. Come Deliverance 2 is a sequel, but do note that the developers have stated that you do not have to have played the first game to be able to enjoy this upcoming second one. The newcomers are welcome. But I'd say if you got the time and you don't mind a little jank in your games, go check it out. And I'll also probably do a live Let's Play series, as well as several recap videos before KCD 2 launches. This game will start up right where the first game left off, just 2 days later in fact. So even though Warhorse may give a phenomenal recap or have the story written in a way that doesn't necessarily require a ton of knowledge on the first game, I think it goes without saying that anyone who played the first one will have a lot more context and therefore also likely have an even more enjoyable experience. Those of you who watch me enough would know that I'm constantly praising KCD 1 as being one of my favorite games of all time. Now, it's not by any means a perfect game, and I'd say it's not even a game for everyone, but it is a very, very unique game that does a few things extremely well. KCD 2 seems to only be a huge step up from the first game, so expect really well done, realistic immersion. Some comedic relief to break things up.
Be kind and protect us, so we don't blow our arses off. Amen.
A spectacular soundtrack, shout out to Jan Volta. Dude, this music is just like, I mean, I feel like I'm in the movie theaters right now. And fantastic, fantastic cinematic storytelling and much, much more. KCD 2 was just announced with a really beefy trailer that gave us gameplay, cinematics, and a lot of information. And when the devs say things like this,
in this game you can experience something you cannot experience anywhere else,
I believe them. Let's jump into all the info that we currently have on KCD 2 and why I think it may deserve your attention. I do have a sponsor in today's video, but more on that in a little bit. And onwards we go. KCD 1 was released back in 2018, and although it did have a rather rough launch in terms of performance and bugs, ultimately the game has been very well received. Warhorse Studios is a studio based out of Prague, the capital of the Czech Republic, and KCD 1 is their only game, which makes it even more impressive that they were able to pull it off. KCD 1 started with just 11 developers and finished with, I believe, just over 100, but KCD 2 is being made by a team of 250, and the studio was also acquired by THQ Nordic in 2019, which could be a good or bad thing, but regardless, it seems pretty clear that Warhorse has access to much more resources now. The CEO and creative director of Warhorse, Daniel, this guy right here, says that KCD 2 is the game that they wanted to make the first time around, they just didn't have the resources to do it. Well, now they do. And guess what? I got great news for many of you. The alchemy crafting system is making a return to KCD 2 as we got to see a short snippet of it in this announcement trailer. This is probably one of the most involved alchemy systems you'll ever experience in a video game. I can't say I've ever enjoyed alchemy crafting in a video game before, but I sure as hell did in KCD 1. Warhorse took an activity that I would say trends towards the boring side of the spectrum for most and turned it into an incredibly immersive, relaxing, fun, and I'd say most importantly, rewarding experience. You know who else took something that could be boring to many but turned it into something truly engaging and, dare I say, fun? Today's video sponsor, Boot.dev, which allows you to learn programming online with self-paced courses in a fun way. Yes, that's possible. So the folks at Boot.dev believe that the smartest way to learn code is to make sure that you're never bored. And they do this by making their platform feel like a captivating RPG. There's XP that you earn, quests, levels, achievements, and even a global leaderboard where you can compete to get a top spot. With boot.dev, you'll learn back-end web development from start to finish in the Python and Go programming languages. As you can see, there's a ton of valuable courses to jump into here, which eventually leads to you learning how to find a programming job. This platform is designed to get you writing a ton of code because getting your hands on the keyboard and shipping projects is the only way to really learn. If you want to just check it out, do note that there is a free demo, as you can see right here, for every single course. You can check it out and just test it out a little bit, and you don't even have to sign in. There's no information even required. So click the link in the description box and use my code WolfheartFPS to get 25% off your first payment for boot.dev. That's 25% off for your first month or your first year, depending on what subscription you choose. And do note that they do have a 30-day no questions asked refund policy. Really cool platform. I appreciate them reaching out. Make sure to go check them out. Back to the video. Henry and Sir Hans are of course both making a return here, with you the player encapsulating the role of Henry, who in the first game barely survived the invasion of a raiding force on his village, and he then sets off on a quest of revenge. In the process, he becomes a squire to Sir Hans and gets involved in all sorts of shenanigans. The way that Henry and Sir Hans' friendship forms and blossoms is one of the highlights of the first game, and anyone who has watched the TV series Merlin, I'd say it's somewhat similar to Merlin and Arthur's friendship.
We were right about our stench. Let's hope this water isn't too cold. You wouldn't want your pride and joy shrinking.
KCD2 is seemingly only going to allow us to delve deeper into this friendship. One really cool thing that I didn't know until this announcement trailer is that Henry and Sir Hans are actually modeled after their voice actors. Tom McKay playing Henry and Luke Dale playing Sir Hans. It'd be pretty funny seeing those two out and about without knowing that. KCD2 is a continuation of Henry's previous adventures, and it's going to revolve around the gorgeous city of Kuttenberg, which is at the heart of medieval Europe and also at the heart of KCD2. This is a city never seen in KCD1, so I would expect plenty of new sights. In fact, the devs have stated that the map of KCD2 is 2 times the size of the map in KCD1, and the KCD1 map was fairly decent in size, especially in a game like this where players will many times choose to opt out of any fast travel and just enjoy the immersive environment. Forcing these types of interactions and not allowing a player to fast travel to locations, even though this is the end of the game, is like immersion meter times 2000. And so many game developers just don't get that. They're all about convenience and making like the activities that they think of as boring as quick as possible. The way that this game does it, you really feel like you're like living in this world. Like the world feels gigantic. It's amazing. On a side note, look how well done the KCD1 map is. It makes me really excited to see how they're going to do it in 2. Honestly, this is one of the best maps in gaming, in my opinion. KCD1 was mostly medieval villages and rolling hills and light woodlands, and while KCD2 is going to have a ton of that, of course, this is Bohemia, modern-day Czech Republic. Kuttenberg seems like it's going to be quite the city in this game. It's definitely a large city, and it's also very rich, which we didn't really get either of that in KCD1. We also can't leave out this area called Bohemian Paradise, and as you can see, this woodland environment is absolutely gorgeous. There's a lot more detail and variation, especially with these unusual rock formations and bodies of water, than what we experienced in KCD1. The devs have also stated that the world is going to be full of secrets, so I don't know about you guys, but my wanderlust meter is maxed out. I can't wait to just walk into the woodlands or be hanging out on a hilltop at nighttime looking up at the stars. It's just one of those games where you can just kind of just sit there and take it all in. This game will be a historical fiction story, and although Henry is not based on a real historical figure, the game at large is set in a mostly historically accurate depiction of 15th century Bohemia, with some real historical figures, of course, very real locations and real battles, etc. Although everything in the game is not perfectly accurate, you'll see folks arguing over all sorts of things if you go on the forums. Generally speaking, you the player will get to feel what it's like to be alive in this time period in Europe. And in my opinion, this is one of, if not the greatest strengths of Kingdom Come Deliverance. And I see no reason why it won't be the same for KCD2. We got a few shots of the architecture in Kuttenberg, which looks phenomenal. We have very realistic feeling and looking weapons and armor. You'll be sharpening your weapons with a whetstone. You'll be doing the alchemy system, which I talked about earlier. There's no dragons or wizards or anything like that. In fact, one of my favorite missions in KCD 1 was simply going out and hunting rabbits. I know it's kind of crazy to say that amidst all of these high fantasy crazy games that we all play, but I enjoyed this mission of hunting rabbits in the woods more than hunting dragons in a lot of other games. They do it so well. There was also a mission where the entire quest was me becoming a monk. And on paper, this is probably one of the most boring quests you could ever read, but gameplay wise, it was insanely immersive, very enjoyable and interesting, and also very unique. According to a Gry Online article, which is in Polish, Warhorse's game designer Prokop Jursa says that in this sequel we'll not only see a continuation of Henry's journey, but also its logical ending. I don't want to spoil the first game's story in this video, so I won't talk about the ending of the first game, but yeah, KCD 2 seems to be the end of Henry's story. Another thing that was revealed about Henry's story is that Henry is going to become a knight. And this is actually really cool because in the first game, you basically start off as a peasant. We are told that this story is going to be longer, and while the first game had around 3 hours of cinematic cutscenes, this one will have around 5. And I'm telling you all right now, whoever directs these cutscenes at Warhorse Studios deserves a raise because they are incredibly, incredibly well done. All I kept thinking as I was experiencing the cinematics in the first game for the first time was that the cinematic director must come from the film industry. Just watch a few seconds of the opening cinematic of KCD 1. While Henry's story in the first game was more so focused on issues of small nobility and bandits and villages, etc., this sequel is said to be much more epic in nature, and now it's about the problems of kings. Henry's character arc and development is truly an incredible story, and I'd also say that he's a rather relatable character and a funny character, which makes it all the better. KCD 2 also seems to be a step up in terms of role-playing choices, as we're told that we'll be able to build Henry in different ways and make Henry who we want him to be. You can save the world or help punish it for its sins. You can be the combat guy who fights his way out of everything, or be the charming knight that talks their way out of things. You can be a thief or a scoundrel and create an environment around you where NPCs are always suspicious of you, and there will of course be a crime system. Warhorse says that anything that you do will be recorded, people will remember it, and they will react accordingly. Now, bringing back up the rabbit hunting quest that I said I enjoyed so much in KCD 1, one of the several reasons as to why that was so good is because using weapons in combat in general can be quite challenging, and when you do finally get things right, it leads to some intense feelings of satisfaction and accomplishment. KCD 2 combat looks pretty crazy. It looks like a polished up version of KCD 1 combat, so expect directional weapon swings and crazy combos that require you to memorize certain movements and patterns. The more you practice, the better you will get, and there's not a lot of action RPGs out there where you actually have to practice your sword swings. Now, as much as I loved KCD 1's melee combat, it was definitely a bit janky and I'd say rather convoluted in certain aspects, such as the combos. So I'm really hoping that with KCD 2 they're able to clean it up a bit, explain things better, and also offer some opportunities for players to actually practice without having to just spar an NPC, which at times did get kind of annoying because you could never just practice your directional swings or combos. You always had to have an NPC rushing up in your face. If you didn't notice, we're going to be getting crossbows this time around, which were not a usable weapon in the first game. And believe it or not, Warhorse is also including some early day firearms.
Some early firearms.
I find myself super excited for combat in this game, and I think if Warhorse is able to improve on the faults of the first game's combat systems, If they're able to do that, this could be one of the best first-person combat systems in all of gaming, and I mean that when I say that. At the very least, it has a really good chance of being one of the most immersive combat systems you've ever experienced, and I keep going back to that word, immersion, because this really is where KCD excels. There's so much more than just combat in this game, though. There's so much more than just the main story. All of you gaming romance lovers, you'll be able to get jiggy with it with several characters. I don't know why I said that. In the game, you'll go on dates and you can even get married. You'll go hunting for food that you'll need to eat, and you will certainly also need to sleep. You'll also probably be able to break your ankles like you could in KCD 1. And if you don't bandage yourself, you could bleed to death in certain situations. I wouldn't call it a survival game though. KCD 1 just had some light survival mechanics. You'll have to repair your weapons and also think about the type of weapon that you're using. For example, a blunt mace will be more effective than a sharp sword against a heavily armored foe. If you're dirty and you're stinky and you haven't taken a shower or went to the bathhouse in a while, characters will notice this and they will respond accordingly. So if you're trying to hit on someone to form a relationship, maybe get married, or maybe you're just looking for a one-night stand, you got to make sure you clean yourself up. You can get drunk in this game, and you can actually get a few perks that make you a pretty badass drunk dude. Basically, in the first game, there was a leveling system, and every second level that you gained, you would get to select a perk to fit your playstyle or better fit your personal playstyle. Not sure exactly what system they'll go with for the second game, but I would imagine that there will be some similarities. And these perks range from combat perks involving specific weapons where you can get more combos and things like that, to stat perks where you can increase your character's strength, agility, or vitality, or even speech. There are skill perks where you can become a better horse master or a hound master. There's herbalism, drinking stuff, alchemy, reading, pickpocketing, stealth, and really it just the list goes on. There's also a reading skill, and one really cool aspect of the first game that gives you some more insight as to the type of game that KCD 2 will be is that you can't really read when you first start the game. Henry is somewhat illiterate, and the game displays this by showing you writing in the game that's all jumbled up and dyslexic looking. The more you read though, the more books you find, the better your reading skill becomes, and you the player will start to be able to read the writing in the game, and Henry too, of course, as it will start to appear less jumbled and scrambled. And that'll be it for this video. Very, very excited for KCD 2. I've been bugging Warhorse on Twitter, trying to get them to say anything about a project that they're working on. A lot of us had no idea what they're doing. Some of us even questioned if they just weren't working on games anymore and just selling the first game. But hey, they were just working quietly, getting the job done. And when they felt like they were ready, they finally made this announcement, and now we have a game coming out, hopefully this year. That seems to be the target. Thank you all so much for watching. Much more KCD content to come on this channel, guides, let's play, all that good stuff. And also thank you to boot.dev for sponsoring this video. Make sure to go check them out. I'll catch you on the next one.